Hello, my name is Nelson Delgado. I'm an energy psychologist in Mississauga, Ontario. And in this video, I'm going to be covering Chiron entering Taurus. You might think, what's Chiron? And Taurus is an astrology thing, right? So, like, us guys, what does that have to do with us? And show me the science of how that impacts. And it's hard to measure in scientific terms how certain planetary positions impact global consciousness. But if we look at history and we see a pattern repeating itself, then we should take notice. We should sort of, at least be aware and just observe. And if the pattern seems to be repeating itself, maybe it's something that we can heed as sort of it's directional signage about which way to go in. And so with Chiron entering Taurus, and Chiron's kind of mythology is that it's the wounded healer, a centaur. And, in a way, centaurs are something that even astrology determines as larger than normal debris in the universe. This one specifically is not in the asteroid belt. It hovers around between Uranus and Saturn, which is kind of fitting because the mythology revolves around Cronus, which is kind of like one of the older gods in Greek mythology, and how it decided to mate with, I think it was a nymph, and the end result was that Chiron was born half man, half horse. So this kind of was an abomination, and sought as to be abandoned, and the mythology of this being was abandoned, and as a result, there were a couple of gods. I think it was Artemis and Apollo who took pity on it, and named it Chiron, and taught it medicine, and taught Chiron a whole bunch of other ancient wisdoms, and as a result, he became a very wise centaur amongst a whole bunch of wild centaurs. And of course, there was conflict between the humans of the world and the centaurs, and there was talk about Achilles being taught by Chiron, and there were talk about different types of notable Greek names that were taught by Chiron, especially in medicine. So one was then labeled a god of medicine. So in his experience, he decided to team up with Hercules in a war. Unfortunately, Hercules kind of injured him in battle, and the tip of the arrow was laced with specific toxic poison that generally just kills mortals. But since Chiron was born of old godliness, he would just have to deal with the agony for the rest of his life. And then after that, he eventually pleaded with the gods to eliminate his, to sacrifice his immortality, so that he can no longer suffer from it. And he would then give his godliness to Prometheus, who is the one that Zeus was very angry at for stealing fire from the gods. But since this gracious act of providing godliness to Prometheus, Zeus showed compassion for his condition and how much he was able to help mankind. So as a result, Chiron was then placed amongst the stars in Sagittarius, his spirit anyway. The key thing here is that the whole mythology is all about the wounded healer, who always provided and served humanity because he saw the light in humanity. But he also represents the archetypal wounded healer. Now, for me, and for many of the people out there in the wellness industry, the archetype of the wounded healer is very commonplace. There's a little bit of a martyrdom complex associated with it, but at the same time, eventually, the gods, whether they be plural or monotheistic, would eventually kindly have compassion for those that give selflessly to humanity and bestow them a wonderful place in the heavens where they can serve alongside the ultimate one creator that we are all a part of. But now that Chiron enters Taurus, and Taurus is the key phrase is I have, or I have to, or I have to have. It's about materialistic game, but in Taurus, the key thing here is what is more valuable to have? All the luxuries one can enjoy to find comfort regularly, or can one just have the most nourishing company that they can have, they can trust, they can have faith in, a nourishing vocation, a nourishing life philosophy that's native to their innate qualities as an individual. So what's really essential, right? And sticking to your principles and being committed to serving people to help them through what you went through. So oftentimes our true vocational power comes from our pain, which is kind of funny how the wounded healer archetype is now entering this. And just to give you a more recent historical understanding of what happened when Chiron entered Taurus, here it is. So Chiron spanned the 1976 to 1984 Taurus transit. And so that's 8 years of the wounded healer energy affecting global consciousness. So when you think about North America, and maybe even globally, you have this challenge regarding value, scarcity, food, land, money, labor, ownership, survival, and the body. And historically, humanity was forced to confront the wound of material security. In the late 70s, that brought oil shocks, inflation, stagflation, and a crisis of trust in economic systems. Or the 1979 oil shock more than doubled prices between 1979 and 1980, while inflationary pressure and energy dependence reshaped the policy. The Volcker era in the States had a tightening that helped re-anchor inflation, but also intensified recessionary pressure and contributed to debt crises, especially for developing countries. I wonder if that's what we're experiencing right now. So as we shift towards Chiron, sorry about the wind, it's kind of windy here in Mississauga today. So the Chiron effect in Taurus, starting in 2026, today, through 2034, this wound is likely to be reopened again. And the question is, what is truly valuable and what have we mistaken for value? So likely there's going to be a collective pressure that points towards the cost of living, food security, land use, housing, farming, energy, natural resources, labor or labor dignity, currency systems, bodily health, and ecological limits. In these specific challenges, we'll be covering the specific challenges in the gene keys. So if you've never heard of the gene keys, you can watch this video and then use my channel to understand what each more in-depth challenge is in the Taurus gene key, starting with gene key 27, which starts from the shadow of selfishness, defining the gift of altruism, leading to the graciousness or the gracious state of selflessness. And here it's going to address the wound of care. Economically, this may expose systems where profit is extracted from caregiving, food, health, and essential labor. Socially, it may push a reevaluation of nurses, farmers, elders, food workers, and community builders. the shadow outcome may become scarcity hoarding. But if we work together, the gift outcome is regenerative care economies. Think about that. Regenerative care economies, where we're not trying to hold on to everything for fear of lack or for fear we're not going to have enough to survive, when nature is inherently programmed to be abundant. Seeds are meant, one seed can become something that produces dozens or hundreds of seeds, and as a result can then germinate and become much more for so many. Nature is programmed to provide abundance. The key thing here is, where do we establish abundance? We may need to focus on accumulating seeds in order to plant what we need to sustain ourselves, as opposed to depend on authorities that govern seed production. That right there is, I wouldn't call it evil, but very much shadow-oriented, fear-driven control. The next one here, in the 8 years, probably this would be maybe 8 months from now, and that would be Gene Key 24 and its shadow of addiction, where we can transmute it into opportunity for invention. So instead of trying to go towards soothing or coping strategies, we actually invent solutions. And in that, we discover the grace of silence, where we can pull in so much that will re-nourish us from within our core of our being and provide for ourselves and for the people we care about. And the theme here is the wound of mental consumption. This points to humanity's addiction to stimulation, prediction, productivity, and constant information. Industrially, AI and automation may either deepen addictive loops or free people from repetitive mental labor. Shadow outcome on this could be economies that are built on distraction, or the gift of this transmutation of the shadow is an outcome where inventions that restore silence, simplicity, repair, and nervous system rehabilitation and health. 16 months later, approximately, we get into Gene Key 2 and its shadow challenge of dislocation, where when we transmute this shadow, it can turn into a gift of orientation, which brings us back to unity consciousness. The theme here is the wound of belonging to the earth, because we've been taking it from it, thinking it's just an inexhaustible resource, and then using those resources and turning them into scarcely acquired ones or exclusivity in order to profit from the hoarding. Now, this challenge may intensify questions around migration, housing, land displacement, climate adaptation, and indigenous ecological wisdom. Environmentally, it's going to ask humanity to stop treating the earth as property and start treating it as a being of guidance that is orienting us towards balanced distribution of resources so that all have what they need to have an essentially good life. The shadow outcome might be uprooted populations and land conflicts, but if we go in a different direction, the gift outcome may be place-based living, meaning you make the most of the environment that you have in order for you to unite community and unity to provide for all, through ecological design and renewed reverence for the land that we are working. The next challenge after that is the shadow of complexity, its gift of simplicity, and getting back to the quintessential things that matter in life. The theme here is the wound of overcomplication. Politically and economically bloated systems may face pressure to simplify, such as tax systems, supply chains, bureaucracy, food distribution, healthcare access, and digital platforms. The shadow outcome may lead toward confusion weaponized by institutions. But if we use our internal discernment, our true inner authority to guide us, it can lead us to gifts, or the gift where we can create elegant systems that people can actually understand and trust. The next challenge after that is the shadow of purposelessness in Gene Key 28, where the wound of meaning in survival. This is an existential Taurus/Scorpio axis. And the quote might be, is life only about surviving, consuming, and protecting what I own? Socially, this may bring out or bring a confrontation with despair beneath the material success. And the shadow outcome might become risk-taking, nihilistic burnout. The gift from working this well, to find the gift of what totally works, is to find a way to courageously live rooted in purpose that you can be committed to and devoted to, and not worry about your possessions or what you own. It's all about making the best of what you have and sharing in your abundance. What happens is, after all that work, the legacy that you leave behind will be one of reverence, compassion, graciousness, and you're contributing to a pattern that creates more of a heavenly way of living on earth, where there's harmony and balance. So, recapping all of this, the potential outcomes for this area in Taurus during those 8 years is the pressure of inflation, debt, housing, currency trust, wealth inequality, and essential goods. When it comes to the economy, healing comes through value systems tied to usefulness, resilience, and shared well-being. In regards to agriculture, food security, soil health, water access, and or seed sovereignty, regenerative farming, and local supply chains become more central. In industry, energy, manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and how it can assist with logistics and automation may be judged by whether they simplify life or deepen dependence on the system. In environmental areas, land, biodiversity, minerals, water, and climate adaptation become sacred value issues, not side issues. In terms of politics, expect conflict around ownership, whether they be land, borders, housing, resources, currencies, food, and national self-sufficiency. In this collective consciousness, the shift will be from I need more to feel safe to I need to remember what is essential, and that everyone deserves and is worthy of and should be worthy of and deserving of what is essential. Clean housing, necessities for food to sustain themselves, the means to find work that inspires them, and if necessary, provide the education where they can be totally impassioned with what they're doing and feel like they're living a nourishing life, doing what they love, providing for themselves or their family. And in the end, what ends up happening is people feel fulfilled. They feel content. They're not chasing the fine cars, designer clothes. And yes, it's nice to have nice things, but at this point in time, the system has become so driven by superficiality and almost like insect consciousness, where everyone's just trying to race towards that ideal state of a comfortable life, as opposed to focusing on the essential that helps us feel like we're living a fulfilling life in service while also having fun. The work that we should do should never feel like work. We should have the means to develop the competency to find a career or vocation that we're truly enthralled and passionate about. And that's what the world should be focused on. Not worrying about how much we have, but making sure that we have all that we need and maybe a little bit more, just so we can feel assured that there is nothing to worry about. We are supported by both the universe and each other. So if you're having challenges with this, especially when you're trying to find how you can generate abundance by accessing the inner resources that come natural to you, that you're born with, maybe you're afraid or have some shadow patterns from insecurities from your upbringing. Maybe you didn't grow up in abundance. Maybe you grew up in scarcity. Maybe you had to flee the house because it was too volatile. And you had to make ends meet, and you had to find your way the hard way. If you're burnt out, you're exhausted, maybe even depressed, and there's a part of you that's whispering, but maybe you think it's naive, and you don't think that that could ever happen, that it's a pipe dream, maybe it's time that you started listening. And that way, when you heal the wounds of your survival patterns that you inherited from your ancestors, or that you experienced from an early young age, like I did. I was at one point on the brink of poverty. I've been there, and struggling with parents that were never taught economic or financial literacy. I had to learn that on my own and through my in-laws. I had to learn financial discipline, and even still to this day I'm learning difficult lessons from financial discipline. So remember, you're not alone, but if you ever want to stop denying those signals and you want to learn how to intuitively understand the guidance that's coming from your core of your body to your mind and start heeding its wisdom and guidance, reach out. I'm here for you. I provide self-emergence calls that are free, 30 to 45 minutes, and I'll give you value-rich information to get you started. And once you feel like I've given you something that you can help work on that would attract more abundance to you, but you still need to do some inner work to work on your wounds and your shadows, and learn how to master this instrument that is your body, then reach out and then you can see what options I have to provide you services on. I also have free resources on my YouTube channel for emotional intelligence. There's like over 200 somatic micro contemplations on the various emotions, most of them the unpleasant ones. So you know what those emotions are asking, and you can access your true inner core signals to find out which way to orient yourself toward and find your flow again. I have meetup groups that you can also access me directly on through the meetup platform, and there were groups called Healing, Knowing, and Growing. There's also my Instagram page that I also have. So lots of resources to access. I've got my own audiobook and or PDF book that you can access off my website at the bottom of the main page. Just fill out the form and you'll automatically get it. Yeah, that's about it, guys. Thanks for listening in. And now that you understand what Chiron will bring in terms of a test, do your shadow work. Address the fears associated with your gene key charts. And once you address those fears, you'll be able to orient yourself with your intuition, not with your fears. Because your intuitional signals come first. And when you don't heed them, that's when the fears surface. Those inherent fears are a result of ignoring your inner authority. So if you want to learn more about how to access your inner authority and learn how to decipher what it's trying to say, reach out, have that self-emergence call, and I'll be available to you. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you for your time. God bless you all. And I look forward to providing another video on Cancer season upcoming. Hopefully I'll have that video up and running in the next few days. Take care.